Marvel Phase 4 has now finished and it is time to do the impossible task of re-ranking everything from worst to best. That includes every single movie, every single Disney Plus MCU show and some standalone movies. Let's waste no time, but first, I will be truly grateful if you can smash the like button, but most importantly, let me know your list down below. If you don't want to do everything, top 10, top 5, top 3, or just your favourite movie of all time from the MCU, let me know down below, or even if it's your worst one, let me know. And speaking of worst, bruv,
let's start right at the bottom. The worst thing in the MCU, I do not care what anyone tells me.
Eternals. Easily, for your boy, the bottom of the barrel of depression in the MCU. It is so bad. The story is dead. It is so goddamn long. There's so many characters, and I'd say 75% of them, we don't even see them, bruv. Some of their powers are so boring. And you guys know about the villain life on screen is a tragedy in the villain department, bruv. And you know Kevin Feige basically Thanos snapped this movie out of existence because, bruv, we got a fucking Celestial coming out of Earth and no one talks about it. Like it never happened. I wish it's never happened. Coming up next is Miss Marvel. This is, for me, the worst show, man. I just find the story to be so boring. All the characters, aside from Kamala Khan, who I think is fine, they're all absolutely boring, bruv. I mean, growing up, I never liked Kamala Khan in any comics. Even in the Avengers game, and she's the middle part of the thing, I kind of just didn't really care about her. And I'm gonna say this now, the worst villains in all of the MCU, worse than Eternals, is in here. It is so goddamn bad. I wish I never saw this fucking season. And yes, I've seen it twice for this video. It is so bad.
How does it feel?
Like an idea come to life.
Coming up next is She-Hulk. The only reason I put She-Hulk above Miss Marvel is because I think the first episode and the last 2 episodes are actually kind of good. And it's got Daredevil in, which is like an instant dub. But in general, this is still what I would call, is disappointing, man. 4.5 out of 10 for your boy. The comedy is just outrageously bad. I pretty much laughed at nothing. But I did have things that I did appreciate, so that's why it's better than Miss Marvel. For me, anyway.
You need to back off.
Coming up next is Captain Marvel. I liked Captain Marvel in Infinity War and Endgame, but in her own movie, I don't know if it's the director's fault or the writing, I don't know what it is. I just found her boring. And overall, the story as an origin was kind of dead. Villain was so boring. It did have some good things when she's powering up like Goku, bruv. She looks amazing, and young Sam Jackson, or Nick Fury, sorry, is always an instant dub. But overall, this is still like a 4.5 out of 10. 5 out of 10, by the way, is dead average. So this, for me, is like, it's just disappointing. Coming up next is Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is like a 5 out of 10 movie for me, dead average. There's some things that are quite nice, the humour works for here, I think Wasp is great. And the overall story I do like. I will say though, Ghost as a villain, and she is so sick from like the comic book roots and stuff, her powers are so unique. She is criminally underused, thank God she's coming back in the Thunderbolts movie or show, whatever that's going to be. Finally, she's going to have something amazing to do because she is genuinely so good. This movie, it's just fine, man. Coming up next is the Hulk. I actually did this video about 3 years ago on the channel. It was one of my first ever like ranking videos. And Hulk was dead last. However, over the years, I've kind of slowly learned to accept it. I actually think the fighting and like the action and stuff is actually kind of good. And I respect that he's going full serious mode. Like when you look at this now and then you look at like Hulk in She-Hulk, the contrast is just outrageous. I think Edward Norton is fine as well. I kind of hated him a little bit after seeing Mark Ruffalo because I prefer him. But rewatching it again for this list, it's actually not that bad. I still give it a 5, dead average, but it's definitely not last place. Coming up next is Black Widow. I said it bare times on the channel. In fact, I think everyone across YouTube has said it. This movie came way too late. We got it after the fact that we know she's dead. It is just an absolute like fail on that aspect. The story's fine, seeing her backstory and stuff. Some of the CGI is very, very bad, and Taskmaster at the bottom of all the tiers of villains, bro. Maybe like the second from the bottom. Her and Ghost like that, bro. She's so boring and dead, considering in the comics she's so sick. Again, thank God. She'll be in Thunderbolts with Ghost, so maybe she could be better. But at least this movie has Yelena, who I think is the best part of this movie, and I loved seeing her in Hawkeye. I can't wait to see more of her. Overall, this is like 5.5 out of 10. We slowly get there. Coming up next is Thor 2. Also, kind of like the Hulk, I used to shit on this movie. I think Malekith, to be honest, I still think Malekith is one of the worst villains in the MCU. There's a lot of stuff that I do like. The Thor and Loki dynamic is very good in this movie. There's so many amazing scenes with Mjolnir that are just standouts for me, like across all of the MCU. Even the stuff with his mum, like, because we see what happens in Endgame, and now looking back at it now, there's a lot of things that later movies kind of make this movie a little bit better. Coming up next, Iron Man 2. This is a 6 out of 10 for me. This is what I consider to be a good movie. I think Whiplash is fine, but everything else with Tony Stark and Iron Man and War Machine, his new suits, I think are just really, really good, man. And again, one of those things, I used to shit on this movie, and even the next movie on the list, I used to really like not get on with it. But as we've gone on and we can now see a big picture of the MCU and the timelines and all this outrageously bad comedy, I've grown to like appreciate Iron Man 2 just a little bit more. Next up is Iron Man 3. It's pretty much like that with Iron Man 2. The only reason I think it's a little bit better is I think the action's better, and I do appreciate seeing like the mental health side of stuff of Tony Stark, because my guy's dealing with a lot, mate. I just think the things in this movie are a little bit better than Iron Man 2. The story, characters, War Machine, Iron Patriot, the action, even the villain. It's just a little bit better than Iron Man 2, even though still for me it is 6 out of 10. Next up is Thor, Love and Thunder. I felt like slapping myself when I first reviewed this on YouTube. I gave this a stupidly high score, mate. Outrageously high. After seeing it 3 times now, it's gone down this list.
And down and down and down.
The story's fine. Jane Foster's fine. I liked seeing Valkyrie. I think she's actually really cool. But Thor, I don't know what they've done with him, the character. It's like he became God tier in Ragnarok and then beyond God tier in Infinity War and Endgame. And it's like they just demoted him to like a buffoon again. But the one for me that I just cannot accept still, Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. He is so good, and he has like not enough screen time, man. I think this movie is good. For me, it's 6.5 out of 10. It's going into the realm of being like, I really like it anyway. There's just something about this movie, I don't know what it is. Maybe there's just too much comedy that has been demoted so much. Maybe in time it will grow on me, like some of the others on the list. But for now, it is where it is. Coming up next is Hawkeye. Just so we're clear, this is 7 out of 10, which is what I would come out and say that this is very good for me personally. The team up of Hawkeye and Kate Bishop is amazing. She was really, really good, and I was kind of worried that she might be a little bit dead. The action's good, the comedy is really good. I love seeing something in the MCU around Christmas, the first time, or that I remember anyway. Just the whole Christmas vibes, the music. I've rewatched it 3 times now, and I've still enjoyed it at like a 7 out of 10 level, so it's got to be doing something right. Kingpin was criminally underused. I don't even want to think about that. If they nailed him, this could be higher up. I think Echo is boring for me. I'm so sorry. I'm not even looking forward to her show next year, if I'm being totally honest. But Yelena, she was amazing. Again.
Hi. I made macaroni if you want some.
Next up is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The only reason I think this is better, for me anyway, than Hawkeye is because I like Winter Soldier so much. It's one of my favourite characters in the MCU. Seeing them deal with trauma, seeing the fact that Falcon doesn't want to become Captain America, doesn't think he's worthy enough. Just real world problems in the MCU. I don't know. A lot of people didn't like this. I thought it was gritty and realistic, and I just appreciated it for what it is. Yes. The villains. Ah, mate. They are so bad at the fucking bottom, bruv, with bloody Taskmaster and fucking Ghost.
And those goddamn Miss Marvel villains.
But everything else I did enjoy, and Zemo, the dance scene, just for that, it's good. Next up is Ant-Man. I really like Ant-Man. Score-wise, we're at 7.5 out of 10. I think Yellow Jacket's actually pretty good. The story around this heist thing is just chilled, man. So low down. We don't need no crazy Avenger battle madness. It just felt right for the character of Ant-Man, and Paul Rudd cemented it that he is Ant-Man, that he's so good in the role. I still really appreciate this movie. It was kind of a thing as well, like a little bit of the others. I didn't really appreciate it, but in time, after seeing everything that's played out, there's a lot of seeds plotted in here that will probably bounce back in Quantumania, which I'm looking forward to. I think this is a good movie. Next up is Werewolf by Night. So far, this is the one and only special 1 hour event from Marvel, and I think future-wise, they've actually said that Marvel and Disney are going to be focusing on new characters and giving them this 1 hour or 1.5 hour, whatever it is, special presentation, instead of spreading them across 9, 12, even more episodes when it becomes too fillery. I love the black and white setting. It just calls back to old school horror movies. I love the characters. All the horror stuff was great. The werewolf looked amazing, and I can't wait to see the characters here in more MCU projects. Hopefully they come very, very soon. This, a lot of people have still not seen it. It's genuinely sick. Next up is Thor. The OG Thor not only obviously gave us Thor, it gave us Mjolnir, Heimdall, Asgard, Loki, Odin, bruv. So much stuff was planted in this OG movie that I have to just be honest, I really liked it. Seeing different realms, the Frost Giants, there's a lot in here people sleep on. I don't know why, but I've always liked this movie for what it is. It's probably an 8 out of 10. In fact, the next bunch are 8 out of 10, but I do like Thor. I think he's well underrated. Next up is Moon Knight. Oscar Isaac just continues to show he is grade A in the acting department, bruv. You see him really struggling with mental health, and to be honest, I did initially review it and I gave it 8 out of 10. By the way, I'm sticking with 8 out of 10. I did say in my initial review and stuff that I'm worried after more of a watch of it, and I know where it's gonna go, it might lose its effect and lose its power. But nah, I'm happy to say after watching it 3 times, it holds up, man. This is a very, very good show. I can't wait to see Moon Knight in the future, man. And the final episode is bonkers crazy, bro. Giant crocodile monsters, it's great. Next up is WandaVision. I kind of had Moon Knight and WandaVision like that, and then I just thought I just prefer Wanda as a character. I don't even care about Vision, and the show made me care about Vision. Agatha's great as a villain. Can't wait to see her get her own show. Or maybe it might be one of those special presentations. I'm not sure yet. That'll be next year. She's great. The magic looks great. There's a lot of things in WandaVision that I forgot, and after rewatching it, seen it 4 bloody times now, mate, because obviously it was the first one. I still like it. It's one of the best on Disney+. No! Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I love seeing the Guardians just going on adventures, man. I'm so glad we're getting a 3rd movie, and sadly that will be the final one, because obviously at the time it's recording, if you don't know, James Gunn is moving to DC, running the show, bruv, as well, my guy. But the story in here is really, really good. Ego as a villain, I'm not overly fond. I think he's fine, but it's just everything else is so good. There is so much humour in here, and if you don't know and you're not subbed to the channel, by the way, you should be. I don't really care about comedy, but Guardians Volume 2 I think is genuinely funny, genuinely makes me laugh. The visuals are breathtaking, and the Yondu scene, I can't take it. So sad, so emotional. I still like this movie. I do think it's a massive drop down from the first one, but let's be honest, that first one should never be as good as what it is.
sorry I didn't do none of it right. I'm damn lucky you, my boy.
Next up is Loki. The Loki and Sylvie timeline thing I loved so much, man. This was like one of the only Disney Plus shows so far where I was like craving and dying for next week, man. Just waiting to see like where this story's gonna go. I love seeing all the variants of Loki. We get a bloody alligator, mate. Big up him. The visuals are immense, and we finally see the big boy Kang, who's gonna be running the show. Pretty much the main villain from Phase 4 all the way to Phase 6, mate, probably. Next up is Spider-Man Homecoming. The first Spider-Man movie in the now trilogy of Spider-Man movies. I think it's great seeing such a young version of Peter Parker. We didn't really get like this high school kind of version in any other like, you know, Tobey movies or Andrew movies. We share the ride of Spider-Man learning his new suit, seeing Tony Stark, who he looks up to so much. I like the story overall. And the Vulture is a banging villain. So amazing, and hopefully one day he'll come back as something else, but it better not be Morbius.
But you didn't listen. None of this would have happened if you had just listened to me. If you even cared, you'd actually be here.
I did listen, kid.
Next up is Shang-Chi. The first ever like proper martial arts movie in the MCU, and I'm gonna be honest, Shang-Chi is one of my favourite characters now in the MCU. He is amazing. It's got the right humour, the story's amazing, but the villain in here is so good, being his dad, bro. You feel the emotional tension there. And when they're using the rings, they are slapping people, and not to mention, bruv, the final 20-25 minutes becomes a full-on fantasy movie, and I'm down for it.
What up, y'all? It's your boy Clev coming at you live on the bus.
Next up is Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man traveling Europe is just everything that I wanted to see, bro. And we finally get some really good chemistry between MJ and Peter. Not to mention Nick Fury's in the movie, but the big one, Mysterio. He needs some respect on his name, boy. He's the guy that fucked everything up for No Way Home. He was a great villain. Jake Gyllenhaal killed it. Originally, I had Homecoming above this movie, but as time's gone on, I think this is way better, man.
You told me you were just a kid. You told me. Run after that girl.
Help me! MJ!
Next up is Captain America, the First Avenger. I've always loved this movie. I've been very vocal about it. I think the World War II setting is so unbelievably sick. They've just done his storyline and origin story perfect. Seeing Bucky, seeing Tony Stark's dad, and the big one, mate, Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull, one of my favourite Marvel villains of all time. I think he's so underrated, but so just pure evil in this movie, man. And just seeing him later on in Endgame and Infinity War, it blew my mind.
You are deluded, Captain. You pretend to be a simple soldier, but in reality, you are just afraid to admit that we have left humanity behind.
Next up is Age of Ultron. Quite a big drop off from the first Avengers movie, if I'm being real, but it's still like 8.5, maybe 9 out of 10. I really like this movie still. I think Ultron is criminally underrated. We got some of the best scenes that will pay off later, man, when Captain America tries picking up Thor's hammer. Not to mention, this is the first movie where you see Wanda and obviously Quicksilver, who didn't last very long. As a package, I still really like Age of Ultron. A lot of people don't like it, and it's probably way far down on other people's list, and that's totally fine. But for me, I don't know, there's just something about it that I still really love, man. You got Iron Man vs Hulk. There's a lot of stuff in here. I think people just forget, man.
There's only one path to peace. The Avengers' extinction.
I had strings, but now I'm free.
Next up is Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. The final movie in Marvel Phase 4. At the time of this recording, I actually watched it and reviewed it yesterday. Such an emotional movie, obviously with T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman dying in real life, passing away, and the emotions, the stakes, they're on a very high level, man. Everyone across the board, acting-wise, was so unbelievably good. Shuri is amazing. And I said in my review, Namor, just what a villain, mate. Charisma on another level. Such a good movie. Some of the things they do with, like, water and stuff, it's amazing. This shouldn't have been this good. Like, it had all the worst cards, and it still turned out to be an absolute banger. Next up is What If. I'm a big fan of anime, and when they announced this animation thing, and at first I thought it was like individual stories, and it links up to arguably the most scary villain in all of the MCU, Infinity Ultron, who is stupidly overpowered. We all should be grateful, bruv, we didn't get this version in Age of Ultron, because he would have been finished. And not to mention, the Doctor Strange episode was so emotionally unbelievable. I think that is beyond God tier, that episode. And we get the zombies. This is great. I know for a lot of people it's not their thing, but for me, as a big fan of anime, and I like multiverse versions of stuff you're going to see later on this list, I thought this was amazing, and I'm so glad they're making season 2. Next up is Black Panther. The OG Black Panther movie, I think the reason this is so good for me is it doesn't really need to tell an origin story because we first saw him in Civil War. So we already know what's going on. So just feed us straight into a story with Killmonger. For me, the second best villain in all of the MCU, mate. He's so goddamn good. Action, fights, comedy, everything about this is amazing. For me, it is 9.5 out of 10. It is so, so good. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Everything you've done for this movie and just people in general, you smashed it, man. Rest in peace. Respect to you, sir. Next up is Iron Man. The movie that started it all, yo. 9.5 out of 10 for your boy. I love Iron Man. It's so, so good. The story and like the arc that Tony Stark goes on. Starts off as a dick, ends as a hero. There's things that like pave the way to Endgame in this movie, where Pepper Potts gets the bloody arc reactor and then we see it in Endgame, you know, floating off. Heartbreaking, mate. The only thing that's stopping this movie for me personally from being 10 out of 10 God tier, I think the villain is not bad by any stretch. It's just a little bit weak considering everything else is so good. And now we're in my top 10. Ladies and gentlemen, just throwing it out there, this is my list. I don't care, man. You guys know I'm just a nerd in a chair. But these top 10, for me, they are all God tier, 10 out of 10. With the exception of number 1, that's beyond God tier. No one ever talks bad about that movie. But everything else for me is 10 out of 10 God tier, and number 10 is Doctor Strange. If you follow me on Instagram or you're subbed here, you already know Doctor Strange is my favourite Marvel hero of all time. And when this came out, Sherlock and Game of Thrones were actually my favourite TV shows of all time. Sherlock still is. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is God tier. So having Benedict Cumberbatch be my favourite hero of all time, it blew my mind. I think this movie is fantastic. Maybe I'm biased. I think the origin story is the best in the MCU. The magic, the soundtrack, everything's great. Ancient One, Mordo, Wong, there's so much in this movie. And Doctor Strange is the master of mystic arts, which means he's fighting mystical villains, which aren't people you can just go up to and slap. He fights Dormammu by himself. Dormammu rules a fucking dimension. That is insane. And Caecilius, I think, is absolutely underrated. Mads Mikkelsen's acting is so good. I love this movie. I don't know what it is about it, just...
Well, actually, that's a lie. I know what it is. It's got Doctor Strange in. But I love this movie. I don't care.
Coming in number 9 is Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie should not be this good. Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, his comedy is so good. A talking raccoon and a talking fucking tree. But they come together and it's just one of the best movies in the MCU. The story's so good. The comedy is nigh perfect. Yes, the villain's weak. Ronin's not that great, but we get so much stuff with the Infinity Stones in here, showing the Power Stone, how deadly it is. Just, there's too much in this movie. For me, again, 10 out of 10. I love it. I've seen it so many times and it makes sense why DC have stolen James Gunn.
Should have learned.
I don't learn. One of my issues.
Coming in number 8, The Avengers. I've said a few times on previous live streams, there's certain moments in the movie theatre growing up that I will never forget till the day I drop dead. And seeing this movie is one of them. This blew my little reptilian brain seeing Captain America, Black Widow, Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, and Hawkeye together in one movie with Loki. So unbelievably sick. The action's great. They're fighting, which sets up tension for Civil War. Joss Whedon, he's still on my shit list, if I'm being totally honest. He ruined Justice League so bad compared to Zack Snyder's version. But I gotta be honest, this movie's so good. Coming in number 7, Thor Ragnarok. Up until this movie, I'll be honest, I did not care about Thor. I liked him in the comics, never been a big fan, but this made me a genuine fan of Thor and Chris Hemsworth. It is so funny. Thor is so unbelievably powerful. Hela, I think, is the 3rd best villain in the MCU. I'm just saying, I would kneel to her every day and call her queen every day. I'm probably digging a hole, but I don't care, mate. She's so powerful and so scary. You get Loki, you get Odin, you get Doctor Strange, bruv. Come on, mate. Better come back to returning again. There's so much in Thor Ragnarok. I can, like, totally see this being in anyone's, like, top 5, if I'm being honest. This is a god-tier movie, and I'm just so grateful they made it. A little bit disappointing. Taika Waititi went a little bit crazy with Love and Thunder, but for now, this movie is still the best Thor movie by far. Coming in number 6, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Probably don't need to explain why I like this so much, because I'm a huge Doctor Strange fanboy, but now I get a multiverse story with multiple versions of Doctor Strange, some of which are pure evil. I love the magic, mystical stuff. It's full on in this movie. Wanda, yeah, she's just the best, mate. Mr. Fantastic, different versions, different characters. There's so much in this movie, and not to mention the big one. I'm a huge fan of horror, and now you've got Sam Raimi directing it. Yeah, this movie was made for me. I know it's probably way too high up on most people's lists, but I just don't care, mate. Coming in number 5, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. The movie that gave us the Winter Soldier, one of my favourite characters in the MCU. And to be honest, for the longest time, this was my number 1 pick. That's how good this bloody movie is. It is a proper, perfect spy thriller movie, and then they just dipped it in the MCU, and voila, you have a masterpiece. They try and do that now with a lot of Marvel projects. They've done it with, like, Doctor Strange. They, like, made a perfect horror movie and just dipped it in Doctor Strange. Obviously, some things don't work if you make a She-Hulk thing and tip it in with a comedy. Nah, bro. But I can totally see this being number 1 on a lot of people's lists, and I have a lot of friends where it's still, to this day, number 1. This movie's a banger. Coming number 4, Spider-Man No Way Home. The movie that I thought would not work, bro. You've got 3 bloody Spider-Man, multiple villains, a multiverse story, and Doctor Strange. This on paper should not work, but it's just fucking god tier, man. I think we all knew that all 3 Spider-Men would be in the movie, but I think we all thought it'd maybe be like 5-10 minutes. Nah, bro, it's the entire 3rd act. Love that. It's so good to see the villains from the OG Spider-Man movies, different universes. Spider-Man vs. Strange, I love that, man, even though they nerfed Doctor Strange a little bit. I'm very, very salty about that. And it's got emotional layers, bro. I'm gonna be honest, yeah. One of my favourite moments now in all of the MCU is when Andrew's Spider-Man catches MJ. That is absolute pure heartbreaking, and genuinely, I've seen this movie, I think, like 10 times now. I cry every time. I'm not even afraid to say it.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Are you okay?
Coming in number 3 is Captain America Civil War. This movie gave us so much, and it pays off so much stuff all the way back from the first Avengers, where Tony and Cap are just like that, man. And Spider-Man, and Black Panther, and Winter Soldier's amazing, and the introduction to Zemo. There's so much in this movie, and the airport battle scene is arguably in the top 3 like best fight scenes in all of the MCU. It's my 3rd top pick for a reason. I still think this is so goddamn good. Like, I don't dislike anything about this movie. I love watching it every time. And it's funny because I like Captain America from the comics and a lot of people like Thor, and I was kind of like in reverse. But it was nice for me to see people who did not care about Captain America and thought he was cheesy as fuck in Avengers come to like Winter Soldier and now Civil War, and then they really like him. I love seeing that.
Everyone's got a gimmick now.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude. You have the right to remain silent.
2nd place is Avengers Endgame. I'm gonna be real, I don't think any like phase ending is gonna end as good as Endgame. I'm just being real. The stakes were so high, mate. Thanos everyone, mate, or half of everyone anyway. And you get that time jump to really get the emotions going, bro, and then Ant-Man comes back. Or actually, big up that one rat who knocked the butt out of the van. He's the real hero. They work out the time stuff and they do this time heist. When you're meddling with like time, it can easily flop. The movie nails it. Ancient One comes back. There is so much in this movie. There's just too much. I could be here all goddamn day saying how much I like this movie. And then Thanos comes at the end, and this is not the chilled Thanos from Infinity War where he's like sparing people because he knows like he's on a mission. He's so much more powerful than everyone else. And then the final battle is, yeah, it's just on the list of like my movie experiences that I will never forget. When Cap grabbed Mjolnir, I can still remember how crazy my movie theater was going. This is a fucking masterpiece. And now we're at number 1, ladies and gentlemen. This is beyond God tier, which basically means you should not grade it. It's a fucking masterpiece from start to finish. Simple as Avengers Infinity War. Thanos is by far the best MCU villain, but I actually think he's one of the best villains in movie history. If I'm being honest, probably in the top 10. In fact, Infinity War is probably in my top 5 favourite movies of all time. Very close to number 1. Every single hero gets time to shine and show off their powers. I don't know how the hell they balance that. Doctor Strange using the time stone, looking in the future, seeing all these different outcomes, and there's only one way to win. I love that. It just deepens Doctor Strange as a character because only he knows what's up. Not to mention the fight between him and Thanos is probably my favourite fight across all of MCU. But who gives a shit about all that stuff? This is Thanos' movie, and when he starts out, bruv, and he absolutely slaps the Hulk. Literally 1-2, Tiger Knee, Hulk's on the floor. And then slowly he fights different versions. The fight with Iron Man is well sad. He sees him as a threat. That's why he tries to murder him. And you've got the battle in Wakanda. This is a flawless, beyond God tier movie. I've seen it, I'm not even joking, I've probably seen it 50 times already. That is my list, ladies and gentlemen. If you agree or disagree, please let me know down below. Again, if you want to be sick, let me know your list. I'll really appreciate that. If you've enjoyed this long-ass video, smash the like button. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. And on to Phase 5. Peace.